Peace and greetings to you. This is Omar Abdul Malik, physician assistant and health educator. Briefly, I wanted to talk about an event that a lot of you all may already have heard about. Nurse Alex Wubbels at a Utah hospital who was arrested by a Detective Jeff Payne because she would not comply with his demand to get a blood sample from a patient who was involved in a car accident. Now, I know a lot of you all that have subscribed to my channel are healthcare students and healthcare providers, professional healthcare providers yourself. So some of you all are nurses, like you, Mr. Brown, and physician assistants and medical students. So at some point, you may, in your careers, you may actually experience a situation like Nurse Alex Wubbels did. So briefly, this was a situation in which Detective Jeff Payne apparently needed a blood sample from, or demanded to get a blood, his commanding officer demanded that he get a blood sample from this patient who was involved in a very serious car and truck accident. Nurse Alex Wubbels, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, checked with her superiors to make sure that she was following the hospital protocol before she acquired the blood sample from the patient. She did not do that because she did not get the blood sample from the patient, apparently because it was against the hospital policy. I think I'm getting the story right. I read a couple of different versions of it. I was discussing this issue with my colleagues at work, many of whom are nurses, and we were kind of letting our theories fly, and kind of proposing what should happen to the officer. Is the officer out of hand? Was it unnecessary roughness on his part? If you get a chance to see the video, it's obviously very disturbing. It shows this big police officer, grabbing this nurse, in the it looked like a hospital emergency room, mashing her against the wall, twisting her arms behind her back. She's screaming, and at first glance, you say, "Oh God, this officer should be arrested. He should be, fired, never to work again." And some of us are saying, the nurse is going to get this big, lawsuit. But I try to look at a lot of these situations objectively, because I don't have all the facts. I wasn't there. I don't know what was going on, but it kind of was a wake-up call to me to familiarize myself with various things like the HIPAA Act of 1996. So that's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. That really deals more with patient information when it's being transferred electronically, but also familiarizing myself with things like patients' rights, our own hospital policy, this particular facility where I work, and the policies of the state. And I would encourage you all to do the same. So if you're living in, let's say, Maryland, find out what the policies are in Maryland. Find out what the policies are in terms of what type of information or what you're able to do to or with a patient in terms of extracting things like blood from them or any biological specimens. Find out what those laws and those policies are, so you don't, that you can be doing the right thing. You don't put yourself in legal jeopardy. I'm very proud of Nurse Wubbels, because she really stuck to her proverbial guns by not doing what the officer demanded. That way she protected herself. She protected what she felt to be the rights of the patient. She protected her career and her license. And that's very important. You work too hard to get your degree and get your license, to have it, destroyed, and your entire career destroyed in one act, because you're intimidated by an officer, who really may have felt that he was doing his job. But it was really a wake up call for me. I've been in situations where I've had family members come to different hospitals where I've worked, and they've almost accosted me and assaulted me because they wanted information on their family member that was in the hospital, and I'll tell them, look, I can't give you this information because you're not listed as one of the people of contact. I've been in situations where I've had officers ask me information about a patient, and I tell them, look, I cannot give that to you. I can't give it to you without a warrant. I've got to protect the patient's rights. And in terms of doing blood draws and things like that, I'll have patients who will refuse blood draws, even though we need their blood to get, a CBC or a BMP, so a complete blood cell count, or a, basic metabolic panel or something like that. And they'll say, look, I don't want anybody drawing my blood. And you have to respect that, especially if the person is alert and oriented and they're competent. But that's it was really interesting to see that happen, and I'm glad that looks like the mayor gave a very apologetic, the mayor of Utah anyway, apologized profusely. Maybe they don't want to get sued, but Nurse Alex Wubbels seemed to be very gracious about what was done to her. I hope that good things happen from this, but I'm also wondering what you all's thoughts are. Do you think that the officer was out of line for arresting Nurse Wubbels? Do you think that Nurse Wubbels did the right thing by not drawing the patient's blood? And have you ever been in a situation like that, and how did you handle it? And I'd also like to invite you all to subscribe to my channel. So I wish you all peace and the best of success in your endeavors. Take care.